1990, I was speaking at a UFO conference over in Palm Springs, California. And I was speaking at a conference there. And this guy I noticed was dressed typical like a hippie. Had the psychedelic shirt on and thongs, but he had long hair all the way down his back, long hair, blonde, and was very soft-spoken. And he presented himself as just a hippie. But I knew instinctively he was not, because his mannerisms spoke of culture, money. His whole mannerism was, he's not who he's portraying himself to be. And so he came over to me and he said, Jordan, I'd like to invite you to take you to dinner across the street. I want to talk with you. And I thought, that's interesting. Whoever this guy is, he looked to be about maybe 30, 35. And he said, I want to talk with you. I have something to tell you. So would you go to dinner with me? I said, sure. So we go across the street. It was in Palm Springs during the summer. It was very warm at night. We went to a Mexican restaurant, sat outside, and it was a beautiful night. And he says, I have something to tell you. He said, it's not going to happen right now. It's going to happen later on in your life, so you don't have to worry about it now. But one day, you're going to have two men come to you, and they're going to ask you to go with them to a very important city on the East Coast. And they will not threaten you. There will not be any threats. But they're going to ask you to come with them. And they're going to bring you to a very important place back east where very powerful people are. And they're going to, and the reason why they're coming for you is they have a business proposition they want to make with you. They got a business proposition. They want to talk with you about it. And he said, you can agree to go with them because they will not harm you. And he said, they're just businessmen. And he said, but when you go, the building you will go into has, I can't remember if he said 12 or 13. I think he said 13 steps. Maybe it's 12. Anyway, he said, but there will be beautiful marble steps. There'll be 12 of them. When you're walking up those marble steps, you remember I told you that this was going to happen. And the two guys will be bringing you to meet a very important man. And he says, and the proposition is going to be simply this, that if you can do your work and leave certain subjects alone, do whatever you want, talk about anything you want on all of this, the religion and philosophies and all this stuff, do whatever you want here, but leave these subjects alone. Forget them. Don't even talk about them. Then, if you can agree to that, they will then, he said to me, they will make you their golden boy. You will be on magazine covers, you will be in newspapers, they will promote you in movies, and you'll be living very good, and they will protect you and promote you, and you'll have a very good life. And so I said, suppose I decide I don't want the deal. He said, they're not going to threaten you. It's just a business deal. And what they will say to you, what this man will say to you, well, if you cannot agree to this, then we will have to consider you to be our enemy. And we will have to act accordingly. And he said, and they made a very big point of this, he said, they will tell you that you don't need to make a decision now. You tell them how long you want before you give them a decision. If it's 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. You tell them how long you want to think about it. Whatever you tell them, they will accept. But when the day comes that you set, you have to give them an answer. Are you with us or against us? And he says, then at that day, you have to give them an answer, because they're very serious. They can make you or break you. And he says, and so, so I asked him, I said, why are you telling me this? And he said, because it's going to happen. It will happen. Not for a long time, but one day it will happen. So I think it is better that you start thinking about this, because it's going to be serious. You're going to be facing some very powerful people. And they're not playing games. So you better start thinking about it. So I said to him, I said, well, what should my answer be? He said, oh, no, I can't do that. That's up to you. That's your call. And he said, all I will tell you is this, that whatever your decision you will make will affect you when you die. That I will tell you. If you make the wrong decision, when you die, you're going to pay for it on the other side. They're going to be waiting for you. So the implication was, I got from it, if you want to live good now, go with the flow. But when you die, you've got spiritual price you have to pay, because you sold out, kind of thing. He didn't say that, but that's what I gathered. That whoever your spiritual companions are in the universe sent you here not to sell out. And so he said, so just think about it. It'll come one day. That's it. And so he used to show up every now and then. He would show up at lectures of mine. I would see him. He called himself Cosmos. And I said, what is your real name? He says, not important. Just call me Cosmos. He was always very, very kind, very courteous, very generous with me. And he would pop up all the time. Anytime I was speaking in San Francisco, he'd pop up. And one day, quite a few years ago, I was in San Francisco and giving a lecture, and a lady was buying a tape or a book from me at my table, and the book fell on the floor. And I couldn't go around the table to pick it up for her, but Cosmos was standing next to her. So he leaned down to pick it up for her, and when he did, a medallion fell out of his hippie shirt. And the moment I saw it, I knew what it was. It was a brilliantly designed double-headed eagle, Masonic double-headed eagle, with a triangle of a red, probably ruby. It was about that size, but it had a triangle ruby with 33 embedded on it, cut on the ruby. And it was sitting on top of the double-headed eagle of Freemasonry. And when I saw that, for the first time I reached out and grabbed it, because it was a long chain. And I said, 33rd degree Mason? And he said, no, Council of 33. Meaning he's not just a 33rd degree Mason, he's on the Council of 33. In Washington, D.C., there are 33 men that run World Masonry. And it's called the Council of 33. And he's on it. And I said to him, I said, Cosmos, were you a 33rd degree when you talked with me a few years ago in Palm Springs? He said, yes. And I said, I don't understand what's going on here. And he said to me, Jordan, you go all around the world talking about political leaders, talking about the Queen of England, you badmouth the Pope, you badmouth people, you jumping on everybody and doing what you're doing. Has anyone ever harmed you? I said, no. Has anybody tried to arrest you or to frighten you or do anything to you? I said, no. And he said, well, have you ever wondered why? And I said, I've never thought about it. He said, no one has harmed you because of us. We are protecting you. We follow you everywhere you go. We know what you're doing. And we're protecting you. The Council of 33 is protecting you. And I said, I really don't understand this. And he said, you don't need to. All you need to know is that we are protecting you. We know exactly who you are and what you're doing and where you go, and no one's going to harm you. That is the task we've been given to protect you. I thought, wow. And then Dr. Shire's, it's my Masonic papers later on, that hasn't happened. What he said hasn't happened yet. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it does maybe in the future, if things really start to get big, and more people are hearing, and it gets to be big somewhere along the line. Because I had an FBI agent back in the late 90s, an FBI agent called me from San Diego. I was in Los Angeles, and this guy called me from San Diego, and he said, he gave me his name, special agent, somebody from San Diego, and I said, just hold on. I said, I'll call you back, and I hung up. So I called information in San Diego and got FBI's phone number. I call that number and I ask for him, and he comes on the phone. So now I know he is FBI. So I said, okay, now talk to me. And he said, I'm calling you as a social call. It's not business. I just want you to know that the people who work in the FBI, the working class people, we know who you are and what you're doing, and we like what you're doing. We don't have any problem with what you're doing. Many of the people in the FBI like what you say. And right now, he said, I just want to let you know your government does not see you as a threat. They don't care what you talk about the Pope and about religion. They don't care about that. And they don't really see you as a threat because you're not talking about arms and overthrowing the government. So they don't see you as a threat at all. But he said the reason why they don't see you as a threat is because they know people are hearing you, but nobody's listening. But when people begin to listen to you, now we're going to have to look at you again, because now you could be politically dangerous. So as long as we see people are just hearing you like they hear everybody else, it's fine. But if we see people starting to listen to you, then we'll have to take another look at you. And he said, but right now I want to tell you one thing for sure. We in the FBI and your government does not see you as a threat. But if ever you're going to seriously be in trouble, let me tell you who your enemy will be. It's going to be the church. It's most likely going to be the Catholic Church, but it's going to be the church. Christian church will be your enemy, because the Christian church is the biggest organized criminal syndicate in the world, and we know it. The people who are actually running Christianity, both Protestant and Catholic, behind the scenes are the world's best criminals, and we know that. So he says, so when you're messing with the church, you're messing with underworld criminal syndicates. Money, politics, sex, drugs, the whole thing. They're running it, and we know that. So the government, your government doesn't see you as a threat, but you keep messing around with the church and the Pope, they're going to see you as a threat. So I have a young friend who was double dating with another guy, and he called me after a couple of days later. He said, yeah, I went out a couple of nights ago with my girlfriend, and we double dated with another couple. And he said, this other guy was a Mossad agent. And he said, so at dinner I asked him if he knew anything about you. And he said, yeah, Israel knows all about Jordan Maxwell. We're painfully well aware of him, yes. However, there's nothing we can do about him, because he doesn't suggest taking up arms, guns, nothing. So he's only talking, so there's not much you can do about it. But he said, but Israel feels that he could be a very serious threat to Israel if he undermines our religion. If he undermines the Jewish religion, that would reflect on Israel politically in the Middle East, and that would be very dangerous. So we're watching him, but there's not much we can do about him right now, because he's not suggesting overthrow of governments or anything. So I just think those little incidents are interesting. I was speaking at a conference in Pasadena, mid-90s. And there was like 600 people in the audience. It was a very big conference at a big hotel in Pasadena. And I was a keynote speaker on Saturday morning. I spoke for 2 hours. And about a week before the conference, Norio Hayakawa, who Bill probably knows, Norio Hayakawa, and Gary Schultz were putting it on, and the name of it was called Need to Know Seminar. And Norio and Hayakawa and Gary Schultz put on the best shows. I mean, it was sensational. It was really a really interesting event. They had great speakers, and it was a great event. But Norio and Gary called me about a week before the event and said, we're going to go over to the hotel just to look around. You want to go with us? I said, yeah, sure. So we go over to the hotel, and so Norio says to me, he says, well, what kind of a presentation are you going to do, and what do you need? Do you need a chalkboard or a slide projector or what? And I said, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I said, just give me a table. I want a long table so I can lay all the paperwork out, and I want to be like a teacher, just the chair at the table on the stage, and I just want to talk to the audience. And so Norio said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put a camera behind you, a video camera behind you. We'll have a guy on a bar stool sit behind you, and right here, so that when you pick up a document, they can zoom in on it and everyone can see it in the ballroom, because it'd be closed circuit television. So it worked out good. I did 2 hours that morning, had a great time, and it worked perfect. And so the guy was sitting right behind me with the camera right here. And afterwards, toward the end of the evening, when we were getting ready to leave, the cameraman said, Jordan, would my wife and I would like to have you come up and have dinner with us tonight. We live right here in Pasadena. I said, sure. And so he and I are sitting in the front room. His wife's in the kitchen fixing dinner. And we're just sitting and talking about stuff. And after a little while, she comes out from the kitchen and says to him, she said, have you told him yet? And he said, no, I didn't tell him yet. I wasn't going to tell him till after dinner. And I said, tell me what? And he said, well, I might as well tell you now. He said, I've told this story to so many people. My wife has heard it so many times, but now I'll tell you. He said, when I was like 15 years old, I was back east on the East Coast, and he said I was thumbing my way north to go stay with my cousin for the summer vacation. And I was out the road thumbing my way, and he said an old man in a pickup truck, and he was very old, and he said that pickup truck was as old as he was, and it smelled terrible because he had been smoking cigarettes, cigars, pipes, anything that would burn he had been smoking. And he said it was an old man, a dirty pickup truck, and it smelled terrible. And he said, but the moment I got in the truck, that old man started telling me every single thing about my life. He knew all about my life, my mother's life, my father. He knew there was nothing about my life and my family he did not know, and he was right exactly on. He told me about my girlfriend, about my dad's business, about my mother, and who she was before she got married. He said there was nothing he didn't know. And he said, I was just amazed listening to this old man. And he says, then when he let me out, he said everything he told him, he said, when he let me out, he said, everything I have been telling you was to get your attention and entertain you. Now I'm going to tell you something important. After you're 50 years old, you're going to be on the west coast of this country, after 50. And one morning, you're going to be on a stage with a man sitting at a table with a bunch of papers, and he's going to be speaking to a very large audience. And you're going to be sitting behind him with a camera, but that camera doesn't exist now, but it will then. And you're going to have a special kind of camera, and that camera will allow him you will have the camera right on his shoulder. And when he picks the paper up, that camera will allow people in the audience to see what he's talking about. But that kind of camera doesn't exist now, but it will then. And when you find yourself on the stage with that man sitting at the table talking to the audience, you tell him I put him there. He's not there by chance. I put him there. So that he doesn't think it was his idea. You tell him that I told you that you would be behind him with the camera and he's going to be sitting at a table with papers, and that I put him there so that he will know nothing he does is by chance. I put him there. He does what I tell him to do. And he said, so I've told everybody, I've heard this story for years, people I've told, and he said, but it wasn't until this morning when I'm sitting there on the damn stage with you and the camera, and he said, and I was so busy getting things set up, I wasn't thinking about it until you started talking and it hit me. And he said, I looked in the audience at my wife, and she nodded her head, yep, this is him. And she said, and he said, I was shocked. I just turned 50 years old. I'm sitting on the stage with a camera behind you, and he said you would be sitting at a table with the papers on a table talking to the audience, and he said, so I have to tell you that I was told, like, 35 years ago, or whatever it was, that I would be sitting with you this morning and that you would be sitting at that table doing what you're doing. And he told me to tell you that that wasn't your idea. So you can think that was your idea, but he told me a long time ago what you were going to be doing that this morning. So I thought, wow, man. So I was visibly shaken, emotionally shaken, and tears came to my eyes. I got up and left. I walked out. He was upstairs. I remember walking down at night, and I took a long walk, and he came out to walk with me. And there were tears in my eyes because I was scared. That was frightening to me. And I said, I don't understand. He said, I don't either. I'm just telling you what the old man said. I don't know how to explain it either. But he told me that you're going to be doing what you were doing, and I would be sitting behind you with a camera. And when that happened, he told me to tell you that it wasn't your idea. He put you there this morning. So I thought, well, what a trip.
And clearly, that old man wasn't just an old man.
Clearly.
And it fits exactly with the story of the girl's father when he was 19.
Exactly.
He clearly wasn't just the girl's father. He was something completely different.
Totally.
You and I are just guessing here, but maybe they were just taking that form for the purposes of leaving a message. And in both cases, that message seemed to be something that indicated that they knew exactly what you would be doing at a particular time or phase in your life in years to come, which was all part of some orchestrated plan. And it would seem to be a benevolent orchestrated plan.
Yes, because I don't feel fearful and I don't feel frightened, but my gut feeling is, and I totally feel this for sure, that there is a very powerful, unseen force of good, of protection, that has the oversight and the ultimate power. And it's watching all of this chaos, etc., going on the earth, but it is above it. And it can call the shots and at any moment step in and intervene in mankind's affairs. So it's as if like a father watching the kids play while the kids are doing things wrong, and this kid's doing something wrong too, and they're all doing bad things, but he's watching. And when he decides to step in, he'll step in, and everybody's going to know it. But right now he's letting you go and play your games, do whatever you're doing. But I'm watching you. I know what you're doing.
Actually,
and so I get to see.
My interpretation will be a little different. And I just inject this here just as an interesting suggestion, is that it's more like a referee or an umpire in a ball game who's keeping things fair so that the key participants have got a good chance in the game without being overwhelmed in such a way that
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I think you're right. That kind of sounds right. That making sure that the thing is balanced.
Because I don't believe that the outcome is certain or fixed at all. But I like to think, as you know, we've talked about this privately,
Yeah.
that you and I and tens of thousands of others are here, and we wouldn't have showed up here this lifetime if this game was fixed and the whole thing was going to be predetermined to some sorry ending. I don't believe that at all. I think that we are in with a chance in this game, and I think that's why we are here, because it is fun. And every now and then, what intervention there is something that keeps that game balanced in such a way that we get a chance to exercise our own responsibility for a good outcome if we're smart enough. And that's my personal take on that.
And
What's your response to that?
You and I have discussed this back and forth, but I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think you're right. That there's some higher force. Well, I know there's a higher force. I know that there's a higher matrix of power. That I know. And I know it's protecting me and others. And I know it has its own agenda. These things I already know for sure.